Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Scott Schell and I'm a specialist in the Germanic languages. I am an independent scholar formerly associated with the University of California, Berkeley, and I hold a bachelor's degree in German, a master's degree in linguistics, and a PhD in Germanic linguistics. Now, in this next video, what I would like to go ahead and do is discuss this concept of Wyrd. In the Old Saxon sources, I am using the term Wyrd here in the sense of like fate or destiny. It's not quite the same thing, but for my general audience out there, we'll go ahead and say for now that this concept of Wyrd in the Old Saxon Heliand is roughly equivalent to like fate or destiny. In the Old Norse sources, we hear of three fates, or really three Nornir, called Urður, Ferðandi, and Skuld. And these names roughly translate to that which has become, that is Urður, that which is becoming or turning, which is Ferðandi, and that in which you are sort of obligated to do, and that is Skuld. And we also have the concept of the Nornir in Old Norse sources as well. So outside of the concept of the three major Norns, if you will, we have this sense of the collective Nornir. And this is really what's closer to the concept of the Old Saxon Yaskapu. So whenever the Old Norse sources discuss the concept of shaping the fates of humankind, this is really closer to like the Old Saxon notion of the Yaskapu. In fact, the word shape is literally in the word Yaskapu. It's skap, right? However, the typical attestation of this word in the Heliand is the Wyrdi Yaskapu. It's literally the shapers of Wyrd, if you will. And this shapers of Wyrd, this Wyrd is actually, or I should say Old Saxon Wyrd, is actually directly related to Old Norse Urður. So you can see that the concept of shaping Wyrd, if you will, is actually a very old idea. So in the beginning of the Heliand, the poet places them as in the Wyrdi Yaskapu, in the hierarchy as being just as powerful as the Christian God. It's not until the middle or the end, really, where the Saxons were convinced and sort of, manipulated into believing that the Christian God could actually control such forces. So intentionally, this sort of Christian God, who's also called the Method, the measurer, is almost always placed next to the Wyrdi Yaskapu. And it was the author's intention to convince the listeners early on that it was the Christian God who was the Method, the measurer, if you will, and it was he who could seemingly control the Wyrdi Yaskapu. It's kind of interesting, though, because we actually see the word Method Yaskapu, and that's the shapers of measurement. So is it do the shapers actually control the Method as well? As you can see that, with the juxtaposition of imagery going on in the Heliand, it's interesting, right? Because if the Christian God is called the Method, but we also have the Methodor Yaskapu, the shapers of measurement, you can see obviously that there's a competing ideas going on here as far as like who is responsible for what in this worldview. But we also see other compounds in the Heliand as well concerning the Yaskapu. We see the Erdelivi Yaskapu, which is literally the shapers of earthly life. We see as I had just mentioned, the Methodor Yaskapu, which is the shapers of measurement, and we interestingly see the Regeno Yaskapu, which is like the shapers of rulers or fates or gods. This last one is really interesting because Regen in Old Norse can, of course, mean gods. So are we dealing here with the shapers of gods in Old Saxon? I mean, in this case, it's probably really like the shapers of rulers or the shapers of quote-unquote fates, but it does raise the question as far as what exactly are they shaping. So I wanted to go ahead and read you a stanza from Folusball, stanza 6, where the Regen, which again is related to Regeno Yaskapu in the Heliand, are specifically referred to as gods. Then all the powers, the Regen, went to the thrones of fate, the sacrosanct gods, and considered this. To night and her children they gave names, morning they named, and midday, afternoon and evening, to reckon up in years. So, again, this notion of Regen, meaning gods, is found in Old Norse sources. It's also found on the Nolaby runestone, at least the Regen part. So, yeah, I mean, so just in general, with the Yaskapu, they are literally the shapers of everything in the Heliand. And fortunately, we have these compounds like the shapers of earthly life, and the shapers of measurement, and the shapers of fates or gods or rulers, if you will. So I wanted to go ahead and show you just how this imagery is sort of juxtaposed, and concerning, the fates, or I should say the shapers, and the Christian God, and actually hell. So in Fit 41 of the Heliand, we actually see the mention of whites, so lichta, shapers like Yaskapu, and hell, all mentioned in the same passage. And in this passage it reads, "Then I heard that the god / ruling / fate shapers, the Regeno Yaskapu, reminded the poor man of his end day with very great power, that he should give up the joy of men. Then the shapers of Wyrd, the Wyrd Yaskapu, also came to the wealthy man in his hour of strife, so that he forsake his life. Evil wights drowned his soul, his Seola, into the black hell, sank it into the inferno as the fiends willed it. They buried him in that horrible home." So here we can see that we have the shapers of the god shapers, if you will, or the ruling shapers, or the fate shapers, the Regeno Yaskapu, mentioned right next to the Wyrd Yaskapu, also mentioned right next to hell. And just more of a quick note here, you may have noticed the juxtaposed imagery here of hell, where it's in one breath talking about this fiery, this inferno, if you will, place where your soul will go. But in another breath, we're also told that it's supposed to sink down into the black hell. So you may have another instance of juxtaposition here, where you have the Old Norse sort of, or I should say the older Germanic understanding of hell, where it's described as this sort of cold, dark, empty place, next to the newer sort of, Christian idea of hell, where your soul is taken to this fiery inferno. So that's pretty much all I had for you today. I just wanted to go ahead and give a quick video on the Yaskapu, the shapers. I think it's safe to say that in the Heliand and in the Saxon worldview, the shapers are literally responsible for shaping everything. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below. If you have any comments, same thing, go ahead and leave them below. Like the video, subscribe, and I will see you all soon.